Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Advisory Board meeting Thursday, January 24th, 2019. This meeting is being televised on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. It will air daily at 1 p.m. with an addition airing on Thursday at 7 p.m. A video is available on demand on the county website. Please turn off all cell phones and laptops and set them to vibrate. Anyone wishing to speak tonight, please fill out a public hearing speaking card. A total of 10 minutes will be allowed for anyone in favor of a case and 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition of a case. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they must share in the 10-minute slot. When you are speaking, please face the board and address us directly, not the audience. If you turn to speak to the audience, the board will assume you have finished and call the case. We will now hear the invocation by Ms. King.
Gracious God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence in our lives and in this place tonight. I ask that there would be clarity and honesty in all of the presentations and decisions that are made here tonight, and I ask that in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order. Do I have a motion for the acceptance of the agenda?
I make a motion to accept the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Staff, do we have any comments today?
Mr. Chair, there are no comments from staff this evening.
If there is no additional comments, we'd like to call the first case, please.
Case number VR-18-13, Kraylod Incorporated of McDonough, Georgia, requested variance from development standards for a property located at 1295 through 1311 Highway 20 West in land lots 162 and 191 of the 7th District. The property consists of 6.25 plus or minus acres, and the request is to reduce front setbacks. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
Good evening, Chair and board members.
Good evening.
The variance request for the property located at 1295 through 1311 Highway 20 West was as highlighted in green in your exhibit books and as seen on the overhead. The property is currently developed with a hotel along with a restaurant and retail along the front. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the front setback requirement from 50 feet as required for a C3 zone property to 32 feet to accommodate the existing structure as highlighted in yellow, which is the proposed 32-foot setback. Staff recommendation is based upon the variance request by the applicant due to the applicant trying to accommodate the existing structure to meet the criteria required for the variance to be approved. According to the survey, it appears that the property will be split into 3 tracks, Track A, Track B, and Track C. The subject property will be able to split into 3 tracks with the requested variance or with the existing building removed from the setback. If the request for the variance is denied, the applicant will still be required to follow development standards for C3 Highway Commercial Zoning District for new development. Staff recommends approval for the requested variance to accommodate the existing structure only. A new or replacement structure will be required to comply with C3 Highway Commercial district setback requirements. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for staff?
Not at the moment.
Okay. I have one question. Does the applicant, and maybe this should be for the applicant, does the applicant intend to change the structure at all?
That would be a question for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there's no additional questions for staff, we'd like to call the applicant, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Micah Carden, 1601 South Sac Kenton Parkway.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to the staff recommendation?
The reason that we're splitting, or we're wanting to split the three properties, is we're wanting to bring three separate brands into the property, or at least two in the meantime. And in order to do that, we need to split the property into separate parcels. And in order to split the property, we need that setback to be granted for just the existing building. To answer your question, we're not looking to make any improvements or anything within the 50-foot setback that's currently there. We're just wanting it to be reduced for the existing building.
Okay. Does the board have any questions, Mr. Richard?
Yes, does this request apply only to the proposed Tract C, or is it for the other parcels as well?
Just proposed Tract C.
Any additional questions? Okay. If we don't have any questions, you may be seated.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of the case. No one's coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the case. Okay. Does the board have any additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay. I was trying to think, did I have anything? No, I don't. Anyone else? Okay. If there's no additional questions, we would like to call the case, please.
Case number VR-18-13, Prolide Incorporated of McDonough, Georgia, request a variance from development standards for property located at 1295 through 1311 Highway 20 West in land lots 162 and 191 of the 7th District. The property consists of 6.25 plus or minus acres, and the request is to reduce front setbacks. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Ms. Jewel Richardson, Planner 1.
We've heard the case. Do we have a recommendation or motion?
I do. I'll make a motion, please, that the board agrees with staff recommendation to approve VR 1813.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, call the next case, please.
Case number RZ-18-21, the Reservoir Group of Watkinsville, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to RS Residential Suburban for property located on Millers Mill Road in land lots 35 and 62 of the 11th District. The property consists of 186.9 plus or minus acres, and the request is to rezone for a single-family residential and condominium development. This property is located in Commission District 4, and will be presented by Mrs. Julie Yoder, Planner 3.
Good evening, Chair and Board. The applicant is requesting to rezone this property from RA Residential Agricultural to RS Residential Suburban so that they may develop a residential subdivision with both single-family homes and condominiums. The applicant is proposing 385 dwelling units within the subdivision, which will have a net density of 5.43 dwelling units per acre. Net acre, I apologize. This request is supported by the future land use map designation of medium-density residential, which allows for up to 6 dwelling units per net acre. With that being said, staff recommends approval of the rezoning request with the following conditions that I'll place on the overhead, and I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Okay, does the board have any questions for staff?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, Mr.
Ms. Yoder, what are the requirements for minimum lot size for RS zoning?
Yes, sir. Let me pull that up. The minimum lot size for the single-family homes is 7,260 square feet.
Okay, do the lots in each proposed pod meet these requirements?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the requirement for minimum heated square footage space for the residential homes?
For single-family homes, the minimum heated floor area is 1,800 square feet.
And what about the townhomes/condos?
It's based on bedroom numbers. So for one bedroom, it'd be 650 square feet. For two bedrooms, it'd be 900. And then 200 square feet for each additional bedroom over two.
Okay, and then lastly, I noticed that the development abuts the airport out there. Are there any regulations that you're aware of that govern the building of homes next to an airport?
I know they can't be located within a clear zone, and as far as I know, it is not, but perhaps the applicant could address that better.
No further questions.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, Mr. Cross?
Hi, Ms. Yoder. I'm a little new to this, so if I get the questions incorrect, please bear with me. But what about expansion of infrastructure for this? This is basically like farmland now. If we put that many houses and that many tracks on here, can things like I noticed there is a letter from the school board.
Mm-hmm.
They've been notified, but when the staff makes a recommendation like this, do they take into account things like the size of the water main, the size of the influx of traffic lights,
We require
school
on
buses
those,
and classrooms, things like that?
yes, sir. We require on those respective organizations and departments to provide that information, and that's something they will be looking at as this goes through the development review process. Of course, with the water letter, they've stated, and let me look to make sure, that water and sewage is available on this property. If that wasn't the case, then they would let us know, and that, of course, would affect the development of this property. So those are things that do come into consideration, but it's up to those respective organizations to take a look at it as well. It's not necessarily zoning-based as far as those go.
The impact on the local fire department or the increase in traffic with traffic lights, things like that, are those things included in that decision?
Not necessarily the fire department. Of course, public safety will take a look at this themselves. As far as traffic goes, a traffic impact study will be required. That's actually one of the conditions on here. And certain improvements will have to be made, like decel lanes, acel lanes, things like that. So that will all be looked at as well.
For bringing me up to speed.
Of course.
I do have one question. Yes, and this may be for the applicant. Is there any requirement for soundproofing any of those dwellings that are going to be going in?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure if the applicant could answer that.
Okay, being that it's near the airport and with the noise ordinance and so forth, I was just wondering. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions for staff? Mr. Rich?
As I understand from the staff report, this entire tract is 186.9 acres, but could you tell us how much acres are actually going to be developed, and
Yes, sir.
and then indicate to us all those factors that would reduce the development area from 70.9 when the tract is 186.9 acres.
Yes, sir. So as you said, the developable area is 70.9 acres. Part of the property that cannot be developed is because, of course, there's property in the right-of-way where streets are going to be. There's a good bit of property, actually 52.9 acres within the 100-year floodplain that cannot be developed. There are ponds on the property, about 4 acres that cannot be developed. And then, of course, there's proposed open space, which will be about 41 acres that will not be developed, which leaves about 70.9 acres.
Okay, what about the flood area, from the Cotton Indian Creek? Is that also taken out, or is that?
Yes, sir, the 100-year floodplain, that's about 52.9 acres.
Okay, and I think in the report you've given us a section about the density and the lot sizes and the size of the adjacent or close by subdivisions. Could you tell us a little bit about that and
Do that.
and how this development compares to that?
So, as you know, we've recently updated the future land use, and this property calls for medium density, which allows for up to 6 dwelling units per net acre. And I would pull that map out for you. So that orange color you see is medium density. The yellow color you see is low density. Low density calls for up to 2 dwelling units per net acre. Some of the subdivisions described in the report are within that low density section, which would call for larger lots, less density. In this case, though, being that it's medium density, it is a higher density, which is appropriate for this future land use.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? If not, we'd like to call the applicant, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore. I'm with Moore Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia, representing the Reservoir Group in this rezoning before you this evening. I got one other map that I want to show you. Bear with me 1 second, I apologize. This is just a little different view of the site plan and what we're proposing. As Ms. Yoder said, the property is 187 acres at the north, on the north side of Miller's Mill Road. The way we've got this designed is we have 3 entrances proposed to Miller's Mill Road. The northern, or the easternmost entrance accesses the 62-foot wide lots. The middle entrance accesses the largest of the three single-family phases, and those lots are 90 feet, and that's the one that terminates into this roundabout right here in the center of the property. And then at the far western side, there's a third entrance that accesses the 75-foot wide lots. The homes that we're proposing within each of these pods do exceed the minimum that's required under the RS zoning district. The 90-foot lots, which are the largest of the 3, like I said, are 2,400 to 3,000 square feet is what we're estimating at this point. The 62-foot, which is the smaller of the residential section, is 1,800 to 2,000 square feet is what we're proposing. And then the middle range of 75-foot wide lots, 2,000 to 2,400 square feet of heated space. The RS district, as you may know, requires the blend of at least 2 uses, a single-family use and a multifamily use is the option that we've chosen. And for the multifamily, that area is set aside in this pod right here, adjacent to the lake. That area we're proposing as an age-targeted, maintenance-free, fee-simple cottage homes. These are, all of the grounds are taken care of, all of the yards are taken care of, all of the infrastructure, common areas, everything is taken care of. It's a very unique and ideal location for this particular use on this property. There's a beautiful lake that shows up on this map, as well as some very, very, very large specimen oak trees and all kinds of hardwoods that are definitely worth preserving and protecting, and we have just intentionally thought that was just a great location for that use, very good vistas off of the knoll that it sits on. In addition, on the other side of the lake is where we proposed our amenity center, which, again, based on just the natural beauty of that area, we felt like that was an appropriate place for that use. For the age-targeted section, It is limited to 60 units, and we have proposed, there's a center median, I don't know if you can tell from the rendering, but there's a center park in the middle of that project that we've set up as a dog park. It'll have some other, amenities, some park benches and that type of stuff. And then across the street from that, adjacent to the lake, we've set aside an additional amenity center, and this would strictly be for the residents of that little section, with an outdoor pavilion, fireplace, or fire pit, and some additional seating areas adjacent to the lake. In addition, we'll also have some walking trails around that lake as just for exercise purposes. And as Ms. Yoder said as well, the 7,260 square foot minimum that's required under the RS, we exceed that in all of our single-family phases. Our lots range from 7,500 to 11,000 square feet between the three different single-family pods. Within the amenity center that is shown here, we are proposing a Junior Olympic swimming pool, pool house, cabana, playground, walking trails, and a dog park and a sports field, a multi-use soccer field, which shows up here. In addition to the amenity center, the constructed amenities we're proposing walking trails that will wind through approximately 100 acres of open space that's being set aside on this property. A portion of these trails we're proposing to connect to the existing trail system in J.P. Mosley Park, and that connection will be made somewhere in this vicinity. Obviously subject to Henry County, their approval at the Parks and Rec Department. Even though there is a good bit of a floodplain rather on this property, it is floodplain that is usable for passive recreation purposes. I mean, I've driven the site, I've walked the site. It is not steep ravine and unusable property. It is beautiful property. If you were standing in it, you probably wouldn't know you were standing in the middle of a floodplain. It just looks good, and it will serve itself very well for that position and for that use. The future land use map does designate this property as medium density residential, and we are proposing 5.4 units per acre net. 41 acres of the total open space that we have is high and dry buildable property. If you add that 41 acres back into the number, we're actually proposing more like 3.5 units per acre. And our gross density is closer to 2 units per acre. So there is a good bit there's a lot of open space we're proposing, and a lot of the open space we're proposing is otherwise good, usable, developable property. We understand that staff has recommended approval in their report with 8 conditions, and we are in full agreement with those conditions, and look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Rick? Okay.
Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming forward this evening. One of my main concerns is, again, this development abutting the airport. In that regard, what is the amount of space between the airport and the closest home/streets in this proposed subdivision?
As it's drawn from the end of the runway, the closest house is approximately 250 feet, probably closer to 300 feet. We intend on reviewing all the FAA guidelines and the county guidelines. The county has an ordinance for airport communities. In that ordinance, it basically just says that the runways and houses located next to the runways will be placed in accordance with FAA and Department of Transportation guidelines, and we fully intend to comply with those same guidelines.
And what type buffer will there be?
We've shown a 25-foot buffer right now between adjacent to the property line. We've shown a 25-foot buffer on the east-west sides of the property and along Miller's Mill Road as well.
Okay. In this development, will the homes be custom built, or will they simply be cookie cutters?
No, sir, they won't be cookie cutters. They'll be they'll be built by probably multiple builders, and a builder hasn't been selected, but I can assure you that it won't be the big box houses. And I'm happy to show, we do have some representative examples of how they may look, and I'd be happy to show those if you'd like to see those. I can just flip through a couple of the different products for the the different lot sizes. Is that, that's what we want to see?
Okay.
These are the, for the smaller lots. That's just a representative example of some of those. Those would be a 40-foot wide product that would fit on the 62-foot wide lots. And then there is a, this would be representative of the larger product that would be on the 75-foot lots. And I don't have a representative example of the 90-foot wide lots, but I can assure you it'll be bigger and nicer than this. I mean, and we don't have a representative product of the cottages yet. That's still a work in process, but we are working on that architecture right now.
Okay, will the property be developed in phases?
Most likely. It would be hard to imagine building 385 lots in one phase. We may design half of it and build it in 50 to 100 lot phases. So I could see it probably being constructed in 3 separate phases. Maybe a smaller amount of each type of product being built in the first phase.
Okay. And can you give me the minimum amount of heated space in the townhomes again?
Yes, sir. We're proposing 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. And again, these are senior projects, so we're anticipating a relatively smaller, although much larger than the minimum required by the zoning district.
Okay. Would you be willing to agree to make that a condition of approval?
Yes, sir.
Will these townhomes have garages?
Yes, sir, they will. And we're not calling them townhomes. They may, but I understand. But yes, sir.
They look like duplexes on the
Yeah,
drawing I
and
saw.
there may be some 2s and there may be some 3s, but they're not intended to be your traditional 8-unit townhome. That's not what the intent is.
Okay. Around the amenity area, what have you provided for parking in that area?
I'm sorry?
Have you provided, I'm
Yes.
sorry, have you provided for parking in the amenity area?
Yes, sir. There is a paved parking lot that is shown right here. So at the end of this roundabout, there's one more long cul-de-sac with some of the larger lots, and at the terminus of that cul-de-sac is a paved parking lot that will provide residents parking for the sports fields and for the swim pool cabana playground area.
And then I guess lastly, will there be a HOA
Oh,
to
yes.
manage this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And will you be willing to agree that after 50% of the property is developed, you would turn that HOA over to the residents?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Mr. Richard?
I'd like to ask a question either of the staff or the applicant. First, I would like to know what improvements are being considered to Miller's Mill Road, and also I'd like to know what the impacts would be for sewer and water capacity, and I'd like to know where the closest sewer line is to this site.
You get sewer. So regarding the improvements to Miller's Mill, as I said earlier, there will be a traffic impact study required, and any improvements indicated by that study will be up to the developer to complete. Again, intersections have to meet sight distance. There will be decel, acel lanes. I think that's all that's listed in the conditions. But anything found in that traffic impact study, like I said, will have to be completed. And I think he might be asking about sewer. I'm not sure where that's located.
Okay, what about the impact on the water and sewer facilities, and also where is the nearest sewer outfall?
Yes, sir. The sewer outfall is roughly, there you go, in this section here. At this northeast corner of the property, you can kind of see where there's the clearing for the easement coming through here. But the existing sewer is in that location right there. Yes, sir.
And according to the water letter, sewage treatment and sewer line capacity are presently available to the subject property. However, an off-site sanitary sewer line extension will be required at the developer's expense.
I have another question. Ms. Moore, will each entrance have a sign identifying the name of the subdivision?
Yes, sir. That's one of the reasons why we've intentionally placed three entrances, not only for safety reasons, but also to give each of the sub-phases within the development their own identity and their own entrance sign. Most likely it would be, one community name, and those would be the sub-communities within that community.
Any additional questions? Yes.
Hello, Mr. Moore. Could you put that picture back up for me, please, sir, of your 40-foot wide product? I think it was one of the first pictures of the houses that you said. And you said this was on the 62 wide
lots? Yes, sir. It's a 10-foot side setback, which leaves you on a 62-foot lot, which leaves you 42 feet of building width.
Or
There's 10 foot on each side,
Right.
the side setbacks. So and the lots are 62, so it leaves you 42 feet wide of a building envelope that you could put. So that's why we placed the 40-foot product in there.
Gotcha. Okay. So technically these houses could be 22 feet apart?
22, technically.
What about the length of your driveways?
The front setback is 25 feet, I believe, so.
Yes.
Does that normally accommodate 2 cars?
Yes, sir.
How many bedrooms would your 40-foot product be?
Gosh, 3 to 4?
3? Okay. So if the house could potentially hold 3 adults and the driveway would hold 2 cars, are your streets wide enough for cars to be parked on the street? Will that be allowed?
It's not, the county DOT doesn't allow it.
Doesn't allow, because you have to be able to get fire trucks through it.
It's a public right-of-way, so you can't park in the right-of-way. But the setbacks are such that you can park, technically you can park 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars in the driveway without blocking the road or the sidewalk.
Okay. What about, let's say, on the traffic study, Ms. Yoder, did I hear you correctly say that it would be up to the developer to implement the things that the traffic study recommends?
Yes, sir.
Is that a condition of the approval, or is that just?
That is a condition.
It is a condition. Okay, I want to get clarification because I heard you say it's up to them, and I want to make sure.
Yes,
You're
sir. I
saying
understand.
it is beholden of them to do it. I got
That's
it.
right, and it's
Okay.
number 1.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Moore, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
I do for staff.
Okay.
Just quickly, back to the water and sewer issue. I'm just
Yes.
looking at the letter from the Water Authority. On the second page, the authority will reevaluate the availability of water and sewer services to the property at the time that the development plans are submitted. If there are any additional requirements, or if water or sewer capacity is not available, you will be notified in writing. Is that a common occurrence with a development like this?
Development doesn't necessarily come through planning and zoning. That's more of the plan review process through the building department, so it's not something we would see. I'm not sure that it's very common, but that just means they're gonna look at this again before it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
That's standard language in the water authority when they issue their letters with respect to water and sewer availability. So it's just basically a coverall in the event that once it goes through engineering and plan review and all that, if they find that there's further need or additional capacity needed, that covers them to be able to require that.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
And just to clarify, Dante, now, if he can't meet those needs, he can't move forward with development?
Yes, he wouldn't. They would receive the approval from the water authority to proceed
Okay.
if they didn't meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you. All right, any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. If no question, you may be seated, sir. At this time, we would like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. No one's coming forward. Speak in favor of the case, sir?
I think so.
Okay. All right, come forward. State your name and address for the record.
I'm Gary Smith. I'm the president of the Cotton Plantation Homeowners Association, and I live at 1228 Mill Creek Lane, Stockbridge. I'm not here necessarily opposed to this. I think construction, the development is a good thing. Brings in tax dollars, employs people in construction and all the related industries that go along with it. But I built in Cotton Plantation for a reason. My house sits on a 1 acre lot with a 75-foot setback. If that's what was proposed here tonight, I wouldn't even be here. But I didn't build with the, even thought of a proposal like this with this density in that area. And I realize that the proposal falls within the parameters of the future land use map. But you know, just because you can do something, that doesn't mean you should. I mean, you look at the density is 6 per lot, 6 homes per 1 acre lot, really? You know, I realize the commissioners have an obligation to the county government, but more importantly to the residents. And I realize that current traffic and school crowding can't be used as a reason for denial. But without the proper infrastructure and the future crowding should be certainly a consideration. But I have 4 things that I would like to request that you ask of the developer. One is consider giving the zoning this property an RS2 sewer, which is in conjunction with the property that was done on Crumley Road, or that's being done on Crumley Road and was approved in 2017. I'd like also to require the applicant to include a natural buffer, a reasonable natural buffer along Miller's Mill frontage. More importantly, that all lots for single-family housings be increased to 1/2 acre lots. What's proposed are a 1/4 acre, or actually less than a 1/4 acre. And this is in contention to the 6 subdivisions that are east of this property. And lastly, a requirement of a minimum 2,400 square foot of heated floor space. In our society, there seems to be no concern for what is right, but rather what people want. I believe there is common ground where compromises can be made, and everybody should be able to walk away from this and feel like they won. So in closing, I just ask one thing of you, and that's do the right thing. Do the right thing for the residents, do the right thing for the people of Henry County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of this case? Speak in favor of the case, sir? Okay. We have 7 minutes for anyone speaking in favor of the case. Okay. No one's coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition of the case. Again, that 10 minute will be shared amongst the people, so please be aware of that? Okay. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening, board members. My name is Matthew West. I live at 155 Kitty Hawk Drive in Stockbridge. As you're aware, the application has been filed for the rezoning of 909 Millers Mill Road. I'm not here in opposition necessarily to rezoning nor the development, but I'm greatly opposed to the density and the design of the property. The property is adjacent to the Berry Hill Airport, which is an active and paved airport, which began circa 1961. There was some question asked about clear space. And you can see where the flight path would go right over the subdivision. The applicant was asked to estimate how many homes would be, or the closest home, he said 250 feet. As a licensed general contractor and former developer turned professional pilot, I would estimate there's at least 8 homes within 250 feet. There's probably 6 within 100 feet of the active runway. The active Georgia MLS listing advertises this property as 182 give or take acres with 2 ponds, perfect for a hobby farm, fenced cross fence with prime developed, or could be prime developed next to a public park and the small airport, and the property has sewer. At this time, I'd like to assert the rights of the Friends of Berry Hill, the owners of the Berry Hill Airport, also the tenants and the pilots and the users of the Berry Hill Airport. Please be aware that the potential rezoning and the accompanying proposed development of this property should consider the impact and proximity of low-flying aircraft due to takeoffs and landings at the Berry Hill Airport. Every one of those lots that's being overflown right there, I would estimate would be within 200 feet of an aircraft all the way where it crosses Millers Mill Road. The flight path used for overflying the subject property is very obvious, and it will greatly affect many of the proposed lots. Careful consideration should be given to the layout, the construction height, the location, and the design of the subdivision and the homes. Furthermore, a condition should be added to any rezoning that places the developer and the subsequent owners on notice of the adjacent airport and the fact that aircraft will be operating at low altitude over the subject property. The existing use of the subject property is not harmed by the operations of the Berry Hill Airport. The developer and new owners would be accepting the conditions that the airport is operating and existing. Likewise, I'd like you to please accept notice of the Friends of Berry Hill collective objection to the rezoning due to its impact on government infrastructure, the school system, the roadways. The proposed density of this development will burden the taxpayers for needed infrastructure to support such a development. The taxpayers will be burdened to build additional classrooms. It's stated that there'll be 27 classrooms. That's a school. That means we need a whole new school. New roadways. Currently, there are 2-lane roads that go in every direction from this development. A 2-lane road barely supports the existing traffic, and not even when the local park gets let out. We'll need new fire stations. We'll need to improve the intersection. This is going to create a very urban development that does not match the surrounding existing properties. It will not be supported by these simple intersections in the area. Likewise, the proposal is to add trailers to our existing schools. What a waste of taxpayer money, and what a detriment to the quality of our schools. And this development alone will necessitate the number of classrooms equivalent to building a new school. I'm going to ask the board to allow additional time because there's a large number of people that are here to speak. This development is proposed at 5.43 units per acre. That's 7,000 square foot lot. That's twice the size of this room. This room's about 3,000 square feet. The existing developments in the area are 1.0 units per acre, 0.86 units per acre, 0.15 or 1.5 units per acre. This one is 5.43. That's 6 times the current development. At this time, I yield the rest of the time. I'd like to recognize Mr. Tom Baxter next.
Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Caroline LaNassa, and I live at 1009 Cotton Plantation Drive. And I have a packet that I'd like to give to each of the board members, if that's permissible.
Would you like to go ahead and state your opposing?
I was going to go really fast since there seems to be a lot of activity in this area.
Okay.
Some of the things that I want to mention have already been covered, and they may not exactly be appropriate for the planning and zoning, but in the scheme of things, they really are. We need to really consider our county growth, and we need to consider the ability to provide the adequate services to all residents for police, water, sewage. You know, we're talking about 385 homes here, but all the county residents are going to bear the burden of that cost. And then the schools, they're proposing 27.2 additional classrooms. Well, that's right there is about $8 million. That doesn't include teachers or buses or anything else. So we're talking about a lot of money that's going to be borne by the residents of the county. And then going through the package that I got, the number and the square footage of the lots, they don't add up to what the minimum is showing in the tables. Now, I've heard some other numbers that say they are, but that's not what was in the package that was presented. Also, they did mention the minimum square footage here today of the different houses, but it wasn't in the package. It was not shown. And I'm going to go back to one of the other points about the sewage again, and the off-site sewage and everything. You know, that's an additional cost to the residents. And they're going to do the traffic impacts survey study. The water is a major issue for everyone. When we get into the warm months and there's a shortage of water and they're cutting back, that is going to be a problem moving forward for everyone. The county has developed a lot of different apartments in a lot of different places, so water is going to be a critical point for everybody moving forward. And it's not just the water department's responsibility. Also, the emergency services, when you need water, like fire and things like that, that's going to come into play. He already mentioned the Kitty Hawk runway and all that. They also mentioned today about the 100-year floodplain, but there is also a 500-year floodplain that impacts land use also. Anyway, I'm trying to go real fast, so now may I give you my little, may I approach?
Yes, please.
Try to go really fast. Anybody?
Let me say, obviously, everyone won't get to speak tonight. What I'm willing to do is that we had 7 minutes that was left on the in favor side. I'm willing to allot those 7 minutes for the rest of you to speak. So make your comments really fast, and we're here to listen, but we can't. There's no way everyone can speak tonight. But thank you. Okay, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Baxter. I live at 75 Kitty Hawk Drive in Stockbridge. And I'm here as a representative of the Berry Hill Aircraft owners, the Friends of Berry Hill LLC. And the Berry Hill Airport, as was stated, has been in operation for more than 50 years, and Henry County has acknowledged historically and been very supportive of the operation of the airport. The concern of our airport users, Friends of Berry Hill, and residents of the Kitty Hawk subdivision is that the rezoning and the high-density proposal of this would create adverse conditions for both the airport operators and the potential residents of the proposed development. We only request that the board carefully consider the impact of this high-density development in proximity to the airport and the adverse effect it could have on both the residents and the airport operators as well. We enjoy where we are there in Henry County, and Henry County has been very supportive of us, and we really appreciate that, and we hope to continue that good relationship. Thank you.
Start the clock.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're down to 8 minutes. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Ray. I live at 3 Cessna Lane, Stockbridge. I have 2 points I'd like to make. Most of this has already been covered, but I've garnered this information off the Henry County website. Thank you so very much for publishing that for our consumption. And what stands out here, if you look at the table on page 4, the right-hand column, that top number absolutely jumps off the page. Look at that. We're talking about 3 subdivisions in the adjacent area of this development that have 0.86 homes per acre, 1.5, 1.0, and all of a sudden we're at 5.43. Does anybody see anything wrong with that? Yes. My gosh. Yes. And these subdivisions are all right there with this one, right in the middle of them. So please, and this is your information. Look at it and consider that. Another thing, Ms. Yoder made during her presentation, a question was asked about the housing underneath the flight path of the airport, and if that was protected airspace, and the answer to that is yes, it is. And I would highly recommend, before a decision is made, that the FAA be contacted and have them give you the ultimate answer of whether or not there's a federal regulation that prevents this from happening. Okay? Don't make a decision without that, because you could be making a rule that violates a federal regulation. So please, do your homework. And Ms. Yoder, thank you for that. I appreciate that, but that needs further investigation. Okay? Thank you for your time. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Boatwright. I'm in the Cotton Plantation Development on Virginia Lee Lane. I just have 2 points. The first one is that I'm concerned about any unsold properties being turned into rental properties, namely the condominiums, maybe being turned into apartment buildings. That's my concern. We are all homeowners there, and as you can see, the gentleman before me, there's a lot of homeowners where we have just homes. So that's my first concern. My second major concern is on in the traffic impact study. I'm hoping that they take into consideration, there's an intersection on Spring Lake and Springdale and East Lake. That is a very dangerous intersection. In the last 6 months alone, there have been 3 accidents there. And I'm very concerned with a development of that size that's going to increase the traffic there. So that I would hope that impact study would also, and that intersection is about a mile away, not even a mile away, that impact study would include that intersection. Also on Miller's Mill Road, that is a corridor that would lead that development to go to I-20. So again, we're really concerned about the impact of the traffic as well. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Irving Breyer. I'm the president of Barrington Homeowners Association. I live at 111 Barrington Parkway, Stockbridge, Georgia. I'm concerned about several things in the impact and things that I've been reading. One of them is traffic. How do you get from a 2-lane out of that subdivision 3? Are they all coming out like most of us? We come on to Miller's Mill to go to 155, making a right, or we turn left, and as the young lady mentioned, we have to go down to Springdale. Also, the impact that you're going to have is that you're going to decelerate and accelerate to get into these lanes where we're going to do those setbacks that will allow us to turn. Now, if there were 3 lanes, one to sit in, it would make sense to us. But right now, it doesn't. The airport is a concern. I've flown out of that airport. I drop right over the trees. And it's not really something I'd like to do if you now got homes over there. Impact on education, we have to look at that in terms of we're building new schools now. We'll be able to handle that new density. Also, my other concerns have to do with, I mentioned to one of the persons in zoning, is I was reading the water statements and some of my printing didn't come out. But I'm worried about the impact on water and sewage. We have problems already with water and sewage in the area and the environmental impact that these additional homes will have. And how are we going to be sure that they will stop at that number, because there are going to be multiple builders? So how are you going to keep them from building once they say, oh, well, there's more property, we want to develop it? We have a park there that's a really great park, and we already have a lot of traffic problems there, trying to get in and out for 4 football fields, 3 baseball fields, and now we're talking about soccer. I think the impact is going to be tremendous and very negative on the people that are living there now. We have 110 homes in our area, and it's just not good. Somebody mentioned the floodplain. I'm also worried about capacity. You're going to talk about 2 cars in a driveway and 2 inside. I can get 4 in my driveway, and I don't think you can do it. It's really not making sense to me, just thinking about parking, and you can't park on the street. So there are a lot of problems I see for this. I'm going to yield because I know there are other people, and I'm going to write something and send it to you so you can hear what I really think.
My name is Wanda Lowry. I live at 1104 Millers Mill Road since 1976. I've already seen the impact of the new subdivisions that have come in that have impacted Millers Mill Road. And with this many more new homes, it's going to be 10 times worse. I'm the highest point. I'm on the hill. They've already cut that hill down once because you couldn't see coming out of Hunt Ridge, and they still can't. So there's so much danger right there and so many wrecks between that many more houses and the traffic, the sewer, all that they've said previously. And with the airport, I know how low those planes go because I'm up high and I know how they come over my house. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Brown. I live at 1010 Cotton Plantation Drive, Stockbridge, Georgia, and I could reiterate everything that everybody else has said. One thing I will focus on is the public safety. I think it was raised before about the fire department. And on May the 28th of 2017, our house was struck by lightning. A fire ensued. If we had not had fire extinguishers to put it out ourselves, the house would have burnt down. The fire department actually apologized for arriving so late because they were already involved in other issues because of that storm. If this happens, if a development continues, there needs to be held to task for the developer to supply a fire station with associated equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Will staff come forward, please? Okay. Does the board have additional questions for staff? Mr. Richard?
Yes, some concerns have been brought up about the approach and takeoff for the airport. And has the staff had any contact with FAA or with the Berry Hill Association on the issue of the approaches to and from, the airport, and how much time do you think it would take to get a response from FAA or to check our own county regulations to see how?
Yes, sir.
How
I'm not
this could be
sure about
impacted.
how much time. As far as contacting the FAA goes, it's my understanding the developer will have to take that upon themselves before they even receive permits.
Oh, that'd be fine.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes.
What are the maximum number of homes that will be allowed?
So there is a condition number 4, that says the number of lots will be limited to 385, which is what they proposed on their site plan.
Okay. And one last question. In terms of unsold properties, one concern I heard was that that unsold properties could be turned into rental properties. Will that be forbidden?
If you would like to make that a condition, you could recommend that, but that may be a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I respond to that?
Yes.
When it comes to properties that someone purchases and owns, it will potentially risk violating constitutional rights if they so choose to turn it into a rental property. Not saying we side either way, but you have to be very careful with regulating content.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Will you come forward, sir? Mr. Moore? Sir, who did? Mr. Richard?
Would you be willing to, contact FAA and also work with the staff on our current ordinances regarding airport approach zones, and then possibly put this request off until we get a solid answer on this issue?
What I was just talking with my client, and what we would like to propose is that you just add a condition to this list that says that the plan will have to provide proof that the plan meets all of the applicable regulatory requirements of the FAA and the Department of Transportation as it's outlined in the ordinance for airport communities. But that would all have to be done before we could receive any type of development permit approval, because it is it's a rule we know we have to follow, and we're going to have to get that approval. We would like to keep this process moving, but clearly we want to build a safe community, and we don't want to do anything that violates the federal or state requirements. So we'd be happy with that condition being added to this list.
And it could very well be that some lots would have to be given up.
Understood.
And then I would like to have the staff go over again the responses that we've had from the Water and Sewer Authority on the water and sewage issues on the impact of this development.
Just read it again, what it says in the letter.
Yeah, or just tell us generally what the
Yes, sir.
parameters are.
Sewage treatment and sewer line capacity are available at the subject property, but an off-site sanitary sewer line extension will be required at the developer's expense.
Now, are there any impact fees involved with this? I believe that there are.
The water authorities. Any improvements made to the water and sewer system will be 100% borne by the developer.
Any additional questions for the applicant or staff?
I do. Back to the rental issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you anticipate within the HOA covenants that there would be a cap on the number of rentals that would be allowed in the development?
I don't know if that's standard.
I would be willing to have that looked at. I don't know the legal ramifications as it pertains to the Fair Housing Act. We obviously wouldn't want to violate any of that. It's obviously not our intent to create a rental community here.
Right.
But I'm fine with looking into that to see if there's a threshold that makes sense.
I think you can. I think you can put a cap, like a certain percentage amount, and then it would be up to the HOA to pursue legal action if someone were to violate that. And I think in some cases, owners could be granted a hardship to do that. Say if they're in the military and had to move away, want to keep the house, but they rent it. So my experience has been is that the HOA the covenants would include a cap on the number of rentals, and that would be a way to keep it down. And then back to the airport.
Yes.
Just curious, probably at Berry Hill, it's a seasonal, more of a seasonal hobby, flights, not Hartsfield. Okay, year-round. But, I mean, if the weather's bad. Do we have an estimate of the number of flights, an approximate number that might take off? I'm guessing it's heavier on the weekends per day. Is there an average? Is it 10? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 5? I mean, it's a small airport.
The number of operations depends, like you said, on the weather. There's training that goes on out there. There's flight instructors that teach out of that airport. There's people that use the airport for general travel. I would estimate there's probably around 10 takeoffs and landings a day on the average day. The weekends it may be 50. Sometimes we have a fly-in over there where there may be 50 aircraft show up and they all may take off and land multiple times. So it really depends on what's happening, what type of operations going on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Just something to think about in terms of the volume.
Yes, ma'am. No, and that was one of the questions we wrote down earlier, and we certainly, like I said, intend on meeting all of those requirements.
I think it's a legitimate concern.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Rich.
Yes, getting back to the airport, could someone that's associated with the airport, tell us what is the general direction of takeoffs and landings? Is it generally for taking off in a northwest direction or a southeast direction, or both?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your question. Generally, takeoffs and landings are done in accordance with the wind direction. Because of the slope of the runway, generally pilots take off to the east and land from the east. So I would estimate at least 75% of the takeoffs and landings would overfly that track of land. But generally speaking, depending on the wind, the aircraft can take off in either direction. But as a general rule, they normally take off to the east and land to the west. So they would overfly probably at least 25 homes as the project's drawn.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could, I'd like to address there was obviously a lot of concern about the density of the project.
Okay.
And it's a double-edged sword sort of in Henry County in the way the code is worded. But open space, although everybody usually thinks open space is a good thing, it actually counts against you if you're trying to keep your density in a certain range. And so, like I said in my presentation, if I take the area that's dedicated as open space that's high and dry buildable property and I incorporated that into my lots and I made my lots bigger, my density is like right at 3 units per acre. In a gross matter, and I know that the gross is not a fair comparison because even this table is a net density calculation, but I just wanted to draw that attention, and we got caught on this on some other projects where the open space, we thought we were doing a great thing by dedicating open space, but it was making us non-compliant with the land use plan because our net density was too high. So we ended up just basically having these big, long lots instead of having open space. So, it's a clustering of the lots and of the development areas in hopes that we're preserving open space that's going to be used by the residents in this community. And quality of life sometimes isn't the size of the lot. It's the amenities and the features and the landscape and the opportunities that exist within the community. So I just wanted to pass that along.
Any additional questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Moore, the senior development that's in the middle of your plan?
Yes, sir.
Is it a separate entity from the rest of it? And my question more specifically is, will there be 2 separate HOAs, one for the regular homes and one for the senior development?
I think there most likely would, and a lot of times in this instance, there would be maybe one overarching HOA and then sub HOAs within that community that, the overall may pay the freight on the pool and the clubhouse, and everybody participates in that. But the seniors, if they don't necessarily use the family amenities, they may have their own HOA within there, but they may have an overarching HOA that takes care of all of the entrances and all of the landscaping up and down Millers Mill Road. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I think there'll be multiple HOAs potentially that would have different rules and different responsibilities.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Moore. In reference to density, have you considered reducing the density at all? Has that been a question amongst the builder at all, or the owner?
We truly thought that the more appealing thing from a resident standpoint was the vast amount of open space and the vast amount of usable open space, and not just tucked back in a corner somewhere, but spread throughout the community. So truthfully, no, we haven't really looked at increasing the lot sizes and getting rid of the open space. But I mean, but we really thought what we were providing, again, was just a better product. I live on a 42-foot wide lot, and I appreciate having the amenities of living where I live, which is in McDonough, Georgia.
Now, if for some reason you are not within the guidelines of the FAA, will you be reducing that space in that area, or?
I would suppose that, depending on what the results are of those requirements, we would be adding more green space, obviously, in that area. I mean, it would just be no development in that area, in whatever zone that is.
Was that one of the requirements initially, that you contact FAA to determine if you was going to be able to move forward or not?
We haven't been notified of that and through any kind of report from staff, but we did Eagles Brook subdivision, 15 years ago, adjacent to Mallard's Landing, and I know we went through the same exercise there. They have about 600 feet maybe between the end of the runway and the first house. So I know that there's precedent, I know that there's rules, and I know that we will absolutely follow them, and I'll make sure that the plan is before it goes through any kind of official permit approval, that it meets every bit of that, and provide copies of the reports to the building department and plan review and everyone else.
Okay, all right. I don't have anything else. Any additional questions? Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay. If not, you may be seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no additional questions, we would like to call the case, please.
Case number RZ-18-21, the Reservoir Group of Watkinsville, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to RS Residential Suburban for property located on Millers Mill Road and land lots 35 and 62 of the 11th District. The property consists of 186.9 plus or minus acres, and the request is to rezone for single-family residential and condominium development. The property is located in Commission District 4 and was presented by Mrs. Julie Yoder, Planner 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt staff's recommendation to approve the rezoning request with the understanding that all conditions would apply.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, any discussion? One thing I'd like to discuss in terms of that was that motion does not include any FAA requirements. So do we need to add to that, Mr. Richard? You do have something?
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, I'd like to add something about that to the motion. Is that I guess this would be condition number 9, and that would be that the developer and engineer to redesign the plans to fit the Henry County approach zone regulations for public and private airports, and that the approach and takeoff zones to be shown on the development plan submitted to Henry County.
Okay, we have an add to the motion. Do we have a second for that?
I second.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Call the next case, please.
Case number COMP-AM-18-04. Flora Grady of Lovejoy, Georgia, requests a comprehensive plan amendment for property located at the northwest intersection of Carl Parker Road and Old Highway 3 in land lot 166 of the 6th District. The property consists of 1.023 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use map designation from medium-density residential to commercial. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Chair and board members.
Good evening.
The applicant is requesting to amend the future land use map from medium-density residential to commercial to support a rezoning request for C3 highway commercial zoning for the property located at the northwest intersection of Carl Parker Road and Old Highway 3, which is highlighted in green in your exhibit books and as seen on the overhead. The rezoning case will be heard following this presentation. The Henry County Future Communities Map, as seen on the overhead screen, as part of the comprehensive plan, serves as a general illustration of development policy, as well as a policy guide to ensure compatible and unified development within specified areas of the county as a whole. It shows the subject property, marked by a red arrow on the map, as within a suburban character area, which is described within the comprehensive plan as areas of primarily single-family homes or single-family developments with local serving retail. The policies outlined in the comprehensive plan are intended to ensure that new development promotes a better sense of place and preserve valued elements of community character. A request to amend the future land use map designation for the subject property does not seem reasonable based on the current zoning trends of the area. This part of the county has a predominantly residential, rural character. The subject property was also designated for medium-density residential previous to the adoption of the newly adopted comprehensive plan and future land use map. This demonstrates the area's development continuously trending towards residential as opposed to commercial and industrial. With that being said, staff recommends denial of the applicant's request. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Does the board have questions for staff?
At the moment.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, was there any other reasons for the denial other than what you stated?
This request is for an amendment to the comprehensive plan and the future land use map, which guides policy and guides these requests. The subject property is located in a medium-density residential future land use designation, which says that in the future, this area and that property will continue to develop as residential, not commercial. So that's why that denial is based on that policy guide.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, did you have a question, Ms. King?
I don't,
Okay.
not at the moment, thank you.
I have a question. I noticed that there is some adjacent C2 properties near that area. Was it ever proposed to the applicant that they request a C2 opposed to C3?
I'm not aware. I did not have the pre-application meeting with the applicant. It was another member of staff, but I'm not aware if that was proposed to her.
Okay. All right. Thank you. At this time, if no further questions, we'd like the applicant to come forward. Please state your...
Good evening. My name is Fleur Grady, and I am proposing use development to pursue land use and related approvals for zoning for land lot 166 Carl Parker Road, located in the city of Hampton, Georgia, 30228, for commercial use and for soft manufacturing distributing with a retail flair. I am currently in escrow with earnest money to purchase a lot from John Grillman contingent upon the lot being rezoned for commercial use. I am anxiously awaiting to close so that I can move forward with the development and building. The project will include one-story, 2,500 square feet steel prefab commercial gable frame building, or any color suggested to be cohesive with the neighborhood. 7 to 12 parking spaces for visitors. 2 of the 7 to 12 parking spaces will be marked for handicap use for 1 van and 1 car. A small private seating courtyard with a freestanding brick outdoor fireplace with 2 affixed benches for seating. Steel fencing to protect and encompass entire site for commercial. Eco-friendly landscaping to separate and to add beautification. 1 brick and stone monument interest sign. Surrounding solar and spotlighting throughout the site. Bicycle parking approximately 10 to create much needed green atmosphere. I am requesting rezoning for MH to C3 for anticipated commercial uses as appropriate. I am also requesting a comprehensive plan amendment for the land use map to change the designation of the property from mild density residential to commercial. There are nearby areas, I believe that you guys asked a question. There are some commercial and some industrial properties. Actually, there is one that is directly across the street if facing Highway 3. There is a sod farm, and diagonally across there is a construction company. And 15 feet across to the left of my property, there is a commercial abandoned building. Are there any questions thus far?
Does the board have questions for the applicant?
I do.
For what she's proposing, could she also do that in a C2? Does it have to be C3 to, medium density residential? Does it, yes, I'm sorry, let me back up and say my question again. She's requesting C3, is that correct?
I was actually, it was actually suggested to me that I do a C3. Quite frankly, I don't know why, because my primary reason for this is to distribute and manufacture and then open it up with a light retail flair. So not so much as just advertising, come shop with me. I actually make my own health products, and so I will be doing a lot of that there, like developing and manufacturing there, not necessarily just retail.
With what you're saying that you would like to do with the purpose of the property, would C2 cover what she's trying to do?
Yes, but again, this case is for the comprehensive plan amendment. I was going to detail that fact later in the following case, which is the rezoning. But yes, she would be permitted to do that in C2 and C1.
If it was C2 or C1, would that affect the staff's recommendation of instead of denial to approval?
No, sir. The recommendation is based on our future land use designation. As you can see on the legend, only has 1 designation for commercial, and that covers all of our commercial zonings: C1, neighborhood commercial; C2, general commercial; and C3, highway commercial. So either C1 or C2 would also be a denial recommendation.
Because you're setting a precedent for future.
That's right.
Yeah.
You do it for one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. As it relates to the executive summary, a comprehensive plan is required to support C3 zoning. In the comprehensive plan, commercial services is defined to including neighborhood and regional retail and commercial services, activities, for example, grocery stores, shopping centers, dry cleaners, etc. I believe that the property site will be conducive and will blend, considering the project property's main purpose is developing and manufacturing crafts with inviting, again, small, low-level customers as it relates to retail services. It also pairs with the already existing industrial commercial properties, as well as the property project's exterior appeal, which, as you can see, is made up of residential house-like structure. This property has sat for sale for over 10 years with marketing purchase signage. There has never been any attempts to purchase the site for residential building nor commercial. I have been told that it would be perfect for a quote-unquote Dollar General, but that would really lead to heavy, constant traffic and nuisances. My beliefs are that the main reason why it was never purchased for the purposes of said residential is because of where it actually sits, the right at the corner. And of course, let us not forget the main views of the commercial and industrial views. Evaluation. As it relates to the closest commercial zone properties to my subject property, the closest one happens to be, again, 15 feet to the right, across the street to the left of my property facing Whole Highway 3, and the said property of the sod farm is across the street, and again, to the left of the sod farm, there is the construction site. To bring light, there is a presence of future for sale signage promoting commercial and industrial on these desolate and dilapidated vacant land sites that sits alongside Highway 3. In addition, to address the commercial sprawl or any other zoning requests, the wonderful Lovejoy, who gets the most urban development and mixed-use community trend, Lovejoy is actually beautifying its community with commercial and brand new housing developments, bringing the surrounding neighborhoods together, which is literally a hop, skip, and a jump from my project site. And I lost my place. Great. It's almost like the excitement of the oohs and the ahs there while driving down Old Highway 3 through Lovejoy, and it just stops. And when you cross over to the city of Hampton, it's like the city of Hampton. It then becomes clear that there is no interest to uplift or any sense of community efforts lurking, nor inviting new developments to build. My project property, on the other hand, does plan on promoting a better sense of place and will contribute to the continuing to better preserve values and elements of the community character. The look and design of the property project's aesthetics will blend again due to the exterior house building design. As it relates to the existing site conditions, currently zoned for mobile home with the adjacent industrial and low residential surrounding areas, I would like to address for the RZ 18-23. The first question would be, I would like a description of the developments that will have to comply with the development standards for C3 zone properties listed in section 2.0103D of the Unified Development Code, ULDC. If someone will.
We're addressing the comprehensive land use plan amendment. So if you have any questions about the rezoning, would you mind saving them for the next case, please?
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm finished with that particular center.
Does the board have questions for the applicant? Mr. Richard?
You said that over a period of about 10 years that no one has shown any real interest in putting a manufactured home on this property. Is that right?
That is actually it's been a long time. 2 years there was signage there, 2 straight whole years advertising the purchase of the property, and no one ever made an offer.
Okay, and let's see, let me just ask staff, this property is 1.023 acres, and is it possible that it could be further divided to put more than one manufactured home on this property? It looks like it might be pretty close.
Mr. Chair, I would have to refer to the ULDC. I don't have that information with me. I don't know the development standards for RMH zoning off the top of my head.
Mr. Richard, for RMH, mobile home or manufactured home developments, the minimum lot area for septic and county water sites are 30,000 square feet and 18,000 square feet for public sewer and county water. Minimum lot width of 125 feet and setbacks of 60 feet from the right-of-way line on the front, 15 on the side, and 40 on the rear. And you're looking at a minimum heated floor area of 1,000 square feet. That would be for the current zoning of RMH, if memory serves me correctly. if they were to do a mobile home. So if it's just an acre, you're looking at 43,560 square feet, and half of that is roughly 20 some odd thousand square feet. So likely no, that they will not be able to split it or subdivide it.
It's a practical matter that you could maybe only fit one manufactured home on this property.
I only want to do that.
If the health department approved it for septic systems, I believe, so.
Yes, it did.
Now, do you plan to have any outside storage associated with your business?
No outside storage, because the way the layout for inside is going to handle all of that.
Okay, so possibly a C1 or C2 could conceivably meet your requirements if you're not going to have any outside storage. If we were to decide that that this request is reasonable, considering our future land use plan. So it's kind of a balancing, process as always for this board.
I understand.
Any additional questions?
I do. I appreciate your enthusiasm and your vision and your
I'm
desire
so nervous. Thank you.
to have your own business. What exactly product or services do you plan to have there?
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bath and Body Works. Anyone? So it's like a lotion, body wash, soap, shampoo kind of a thing. It'll be a place where people can come and smell, touch, feel. It'll also be advertising local art. I would like it to be just a place where people can convene and shop and just, really artsy-fartsy kind of a thing.
Obviously you want this location. Were there any other options available to you? Did you look at any other options that would perhaps not create as many issues for you in terms of the rezoning and the change?
I didn't really foresee any issues. No issues. I'm a visionary, of course, and like I said, there are three things happening. There's already commercial here. There's industrial there, and it's kind of like commercial industrial there. And I would just be the fourth right there on the corner. So I really didn't see it. I don't really see it as being like out of place, if you will.
I understand. Your request does create a problem in that it would set a precedent. And I think there's a major issue with that.
I'm sorry?
That your request, if granted, would set a precedent. And there's a problem with that. Because if it's done for you, then down the road it could be done for, say, a Dollar General or some other commercial property. So this particular request is difficult. I appreciate your vision, your enthusiasm, your desire to have a business, but it does create a problem in terms of staff recommendation to deny because it would set a precedent.
Yeah, I'm just looking for some condition. To actually.
And I'm just not sure we can do that on this particular request.
Right.
I just want you to understand. I'm not against you.
That's okay.
I'm for you. But there are parameters.
I understand.
Within which we have to work.
Absolutely. To add to that, there are tons of home-based businesses all up and down. There's one like 20 feet away from me this way to the left. There's one 20 feet away from me to the right. There's tons of signage for commercial advertisement, please buy commercial or industrial, tons of for sale signs right alongside Old Highway 3. So the sprawl is coming, it's there. It's been sitting for so long, it's so dilapidated. There's weeds and bushes and abandoned cars. No one seems to be trying to do anything, not even residential. The way the properties would sit on Old Highway 3, in the areas that are vacant and the areas that are advertising more commercial or more industrial to actually amend the gaps. Where my property is, to the right, of course, there's the Lovejoys, tons of stuff happening, tons of commercial, tons of restaurants, gas stations, and things like that. And then to the left, when you're going, I say about almost a mile, you have that four-way where they actually widen the street on Highway 81. So you have more restaurants, gas stations, and promoting of future commercial and industrial building. So I really don't really think that it's too far-fetched because of what's happening all around me, and also what's happening to the left of me within feet, also to the across the street, and also to diagonally across from my property.
Let me ask a question. Will you point out on this map where you're speaking in terms of the other commercial properties?
That are existing currently?
Yes, yes. It's actually right before you there, the one, yes.
So, yeah, I love this too. Can I fit both of them? So if I would like to do it like this.
Okay, but we'll go back to the other one, but go ahead.
Okay, great. This is my property.
Okay.
And this is the front. Oh man, okay. So this would be like the front almost, right? So you have this property right here that's zone commercial, but it's abandoned, but yet it has tons of trucks and heavy machinery. They're actually using it for the purposes of storage. Here, over here, you really can't see, but over here, that's that construction company. Of course, across the street is the sod farm, which is here. And then when you go down this way, that's going towards Highway 81, there are tons of small home-based businesses, tons of them. The signage for...
If you will, go back to your other map.
Okay.
To the other map. Okay, now point out your property.
Okay,
It should be the green square.
Okay, right here.
Yours should be the smaller.
Oh, sorry, right here.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now the commercial property surrounding your property will be where?
Right here.
Mr. Nestle, would you like me to put up
Yes,
the
please.
zoning map?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay. Here we go. And, okay, here. C1. So this would be the sod?
No, the sod farm is the green on the opposite of the railroad.
Okay. So what would this be?
That would be the vacant.
Okay, right. So this would be the vacant lot here.
Okay.
This is commercial. Right here? Right here. This would be the sod.
Mhm.
This would be the sod, I'm sorry. And then this would be the construction company right here. And this will be the construction company. My apologies. So here's my property. This is the sod farm. This is the construction site. Right? They're like, literally like within feet of my property, literally.
That's all I have as of now. Okay, any additional questions?
I might add one more thing.
Okay.
That corner lot construction, there's 7 acres next to it. The zone commercial, there's a sign on it now. And it says it's already zoned. So then that's a construction company across the railroad. They've been there for years. It's a huge company. And this here company, they make turf on all this land.
All right, any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated, ma'am. Okay. All right. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. Okay. No one's coming forward. We'd also like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition of the case. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
My name's Robert Tucker, and I live on Conkle Road, 335 Conkle Road. And what I worry about is what y'all say about setting a precedent. I mean, you've got your property there. Where does it stop? Over the years or months, does it keep coming this way? All the way down, and then does it turn the corner here at Conkle Road? Because you've got 34 acres for sale right here, which I don't know that could be anything. And then this area here, there is a sign that says 7 acres for sale. I don't know that it's commercial yet or not. Is it?
Yes, sir. It is
Oh,
zoned
okay.
commercial, yes.
Okay, there's a sign that's saying commercial then. But, this lot here, the abandoned property, right now it's not construction vehicles, it's, the outfits that do work for Georgia Power, cutting trees and grinding them up. They're not parked there all the time. That's just a temporary thing, I think. But I'm just worried about setting a precedence of how far down Carl Parker you're gonna go, and then when you're gonna turn the corners. That's all I worry about at this point.
Okay. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition of this case? Okay. If not, does the board have any additional questions for the applicant or staff? Okay. If not, we'd like to call the case.
Case number COMP-AM-18-04. Flora Grady of Lovejoy, Georgia, requests a comprehensive plan amendment for a property located at the northwest intersection of Carl Parker Road and Old Highway 3 in land lot 166 of the 6th District. The property consists of 1.023 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use map designation from medium-density residential to commercial. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Okay. We've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that board goes with staff recommendation to deny COMP-AM-18-04.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, call the next case, please.
Case number RZ-18-23. Flora Grady of Lovejoy, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RMH, Mobile Manufactured Homes, to C3, Highway Commercial, for property located at the northwest intersection of Carl Parker Road and Old Highway 3 in land lot 166 of the 6th District. The property consists of 1.023 plus or minus acres, and the request is for manufacturing, distributing, and retail. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Good evening again, Board. The rezoning case before you is a request to rezone the property located at the northwest corner of Carl Parker Road and Old Highway 3, as highlighted in green in your exhibit books and as seen on the overhead. The request is to rezone from RMH, Mobile or Manufactured Homes, to C3, Highway Commercial, for the purpose of developing a craft manufacturing and retail store. The use, as proposed by the applicant through her letter of intent, does not require C3 zoning, as it is permissible in both the C1 neighborhood commercial and C2 general commercial zoning districts. C3 is the most intense commercial zoning district in Henry County, and properties with the C3 zoning are meant to be located at locations which provide for the highest level of access to regional highways and major transportation systems. Using the Henry County Functional Road Classification detailed within the comprehensive plan, Carl Parker Road is classified as a local road. Old Highway 3 is not a state highway and is classified as a county major arterial. So the area surrounding the subject property does contain a combination of zoning districts. The nearest commercial zoned property is a C2 vacant property located to the east of the subject property, which appears to be developed as a partially vacant lot with industrial utility use. However, the other commercial zoned properties, which are all located on the east side of Carl Parker Road, have not been developed as commercial properties. They all are currently developed as single-family homes. The aforementioned commercial properties on the north and east side of Carl Parker Road are not expected to develop as commercial properties in the future, as demonstrated by the future land use map. As such, the proposed development is not in compliance with the future land use map, as the subject property is currently designated for medium-density residential. This demonstrates the area's development trends towards residential developments. With that being said, staff recommends denial of the applicant's request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Does the board have questions for staff? Okay, if not, I'd like the applicant to come forward, please. Anything additional you'd like to add to staff recommendation?
Absolutely, I do. To tell you the truth, I wasn't even going to come here today. I made the mistake by reaching out to people of higher power as it relates to the board, and I believe that I was embraced and promised so many things of support. And yesterday I received a call, and it was totally opposite. And it just totally broke me down. So if you're wondering why I'm so nervous, I'm very smart. I can speak. I have wonderful speaking skills. However, it just totally broke me down. I was told to just basically appeal. I guess the question again would be, what will be comfortable for you guys to, I guess, recommend as it relates to the project that I'm actually trying to move forward with?
I think that question would be towards staff in terms of what would meet the requirements. And
I can briefly explain or give a kind of a response to that. Staff is held to a high ethical standard with respect to policies, regulations, zoning procedures law, and the Planning Act. We have to make objective recommendations based on the policies adopted by the Board of Commissioners. And so in those recommendations that we give to the Zoning Advisory Board, who thereby gives recommendations to the Board of Commissioners, those are based on, objectively, the rules and regs that we have to govern or administer throughout the entire unincorporated Henry County. So it's not a matter of what's comfortable, because then we cross ethical boundaries. It's not a matter of what we like or don't like. It's a matter of what's approved. What will be approved based on the policies that support what can be approved. But if they don't support what's being asked, or what cannot, if they don't support what's being requested, then the recommendation would be that of denial. So this is our standard procedure of assessing applications, of making recommendations, and then making them to whether it be the Zoning Advisory Board or the Board of Commissioners. It's always based on the rules and the regulations and the context of those regs, and whether or not they support or not support what an applicant is requesting. So we cannot get into we want this, so we're going to approve it. That would cross a line.
Okay, that's understood. Now, my question for you is: the future land development does not include C3 or C2 for this area, or does it?
Correct. On the west side of Carl Parker Road, on the overhead, it shows medium density. To the southwest and to the southeast, it shows medium density. That projection is based on the last 10 years of how that area has or hasn't developed. When we went through the comprehensive land use plan and with the Atlanta Regional Commission, there was an analysis done based on how the trends were, or how that area developed over the last decade. And so what we saw and what we see is a trend for medium density residential. That even though on the eastern side of Carl Parker Road, there are several properties that are zoned commercial, but only one of those properties actually has a commercial building on it, but is not active. If you go further north on Carl Parker on the east side, there are properties that are zoned C2, but there are actual single-family residences on those tracts. So the way that area has trended and the character of that area is technically residential, which is why the future land use projection through year 2040 is now medium density.
And just to add to that, this board typically is making decisions based on the future land development. And where we are now and the future land development does not support it. So, and that's why, and that's where the board is as of this point. Okay. But, does the board have any additional questions, or do you have anything else that you would like to add?
I do.
Okay, please.
For criteria point 3, the zoning of the property to C3 highway commercial would be out of character of this area while it's largely rural and residential. I believe that my project property would definitely be in character as it relates to the already existing presence, again, on the left side, commercial property, across the street, large industrial site, and the construction site diagonally across the street from my project property. Furthermore, I believe that it would be a corridor for the community that would help fill in the gaps, again, to the already existing small home-based businesses, as well as mend the gap between the commercial businesses, gas stations, and restaurants that are under a mile away going southeast. To address criteria 4, property undeveloped, yes, the property is undeveloped now. However, the property is flat and square, which will make it easy to construct and build moving forward. The soils also grant to be good, especially for a private septic, due to the area not needing an easement for the water company. My plans are to follow all legal and necessary building guidelines within reason to develop the property properly throughout the development plan phase. As it relates to criteria 5.5, the impacts on the adjacent residential property owners would be an increase in traffic, noise, and light pollution. The project property site wouldn't bring any more traffic than what already exists every single day. This is remembering that that this is a local road and a major arterial road. Also taking into consideration, again, the adjoining newly widened Highway 81, which has invited many motorists to cruise the back ways, if you will. We're building like crazy in Henry County. We need to put some more Walmarts up and some Targets. Where are these people going to actually go? There's nothing cute and fancy. No theaters, no real cute strip malls. Tower Boulevard is developing. However, there should and there needs to be a mixed-use trend for urban development all through Henry County. Also, the property site wouldn't bring any more noise nor light that is already existing and coming from the large sod farm, the construction company site, and the abandoned commercial site, which please note is currently being used to store large trucks and large machinery. Collectively, with all 3 of these property sites, there's always heavy-duty activity consisting of large trucks, tractors, machinery, and consumers with large trucks for pickup use. Even though there is security gates surrounding the 2 or 3 of these properties, there's always 24-hour lighting illuminating the entire site. In fact, my property would only contribute to a small percentage of said noise nuisance. My projected lighting combined with building lighting and gardening spot lighting is set to be dim within the range of normal residential lighting. As it relates to streets and sidewalk, my question was, from conflicting information that I have received from outside higher sources about the project or the corridor overlay, I wanted to know if this particular area is likely to enforce sidewalks, et cetera.
That would be a question for staff.
The subject property is not within the Highway Corridor Overlay District. The Highway Corridor Overlay District was amended last year, and we do not foresee requiring sidewalks along Old Highway 3 or Old Parker Road at this time.
I was told to get prepared for it, that the district didn't want certain type of steel buildings. The district didn't want any properties that did not exist of sidewalks, thus moving forward with the corridor overlay. Continuing on. I would like to ask the board members to think outside the box. Something different. updating, so to speak. The old map before, I believe, October 2018 when it was changed.
The future land use?
The future, when was that changed?
October 16th, 2018.
Perfect. Prior to that, if I was just a couple of more months into, there showed commercial. October, it just changed to medium residential. I get that. However, it still doesn't go against the fact that there's tons of commercial and industrial activity existing and being promoted. I'm asking you guys to think fairly and again creatively outside the box. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant?
Who is that guy?
You ride down there and you see this construction. Just beyond that, there's a pet and grooming business. Then just beyond that is a record business. They got their records sitting all in the yard. So that's all I got to say.
I have a question for the applicant. Have you made purchase of the property already?
Yeah, almost. I mean, I have like a couple more things to sign, but yes, I'm going to appeal. I'm going to keep trying because I truly believe that this is perfect for me and this is perfect for the community.
I understand. Okay. It does the.
May I ask the applicant something? This will be a lighthearted question, not necessarily official, okay?
Got it.
We're rooting for
Right.
it. What the board is trying to say is there's obstacles.
Of
So let me
course.
ask you this.
Yes.
Your target, your mission, your goal
Yes.
as an entrepreneur,
Uh-huh.
is it to be in this business or is it to be here? And I'll preface that with this.
Okay.
Because I want to encourage you. I don't want, at the end of the day, we want to serve the citizens,
Right,
okay? We're not here
right.
to. But if you have an objective and you get a plan to accomplish that objective and something comes up, you don't change your objective, you just change your plan.
I understand.
So, and I saw you sigh earlier when you mentioned Hampton. Well, I'm the representative for Hampton. And I try to be the biggest cheerleader for Hampton.
I am in love with Hampton. I actually own in Hampton.
So, and this might not help this gentleman, but is there other properties to where you can still fulfill your objective, but just change your plan?
I don't believe that.
Because it sounds like you're mentally married to that location, and that's.
I'm married to it because the things already exist. And again, I am a visionary. And I bought the property. There are things happening with Henry County, with the city of Hampton. Like I said, I did buy in the city of Hampton in the year of 2017, a beautiful lake house. I see so many things for the city of Hampton, especially with all the building and infrastructure happening. And especially on Old Highway 3. I see it. It will come. I believe that a MARTA is being talked about, bringing Atlantans more closer. Hampton could be super savvy, super savvy. And I want to be, I want to partake in that particular. And like I said, I do want to be the corridor. I want to be the beginning of it as you enter on that particular highway into the city of Hampton.
It's Mrs. Grady, right?
It is Mrs. Grady.
Ms. Grady, if you can't meet your objective through this process, come see us in Hampton. We'll find you a place. Okay?
Okay, thank you. I thought, yeah, okay.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. If there's no additional questions for the applicant, you may be seated, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to call forward anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. No one's coming forward. Anyone would like to speak in opposition? We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition.
Robert Tucker again, Concord Road. If I'm not mistaken, there are empty storefronts in Lovejoy, Hampton, in that Highway 81 area. That's might be a good place for this. Keep the commercial where the commercial's already at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no one else is coming forward. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? Or if not, call the case, please.
Case number RZ-18-23, Flora Grady of Lovejoy, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RMH Mobile Manufactured Homes to C3 Highway Commercial for property located at the northwest intersection of Carl Parker Road and Old Highway 3 and land lot 166 of the 6th District. The property consists of 1.023 plus or minus acres, and the request is for manufacturing, distributing, and retail. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mrs. Yuritsa Nieves, Planner 2.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I do. I have a motion that the board agrees with staff recommendation to deny RZ-18-23.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you. Call the next case, please.
Case number COMP-AM-18-05. Gene Morris of McDonough, Georgia, requests a comprehensive plan amendment for property located west of 3248 Highway 81 West and land lot 185 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.05 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the land use map designation from high-density residential to commercial. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill, Chief Planner.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
The case before you tonight is very close to the subject property of our previous hearing. So to get your bearings, this is Old Highway 3. This is the realignment of Highway 81, and I believe it was mentioned before at this meeting that there's a new light there at the new four-way intersection. The subject property is indicated in green, so it's immediately to the east of property that is already currently designated for commercial land uses. So the applicant is requesting that the future land use map be changed from the current land use designation of high-density residential to a designation of commercial. And the purpose is to support the concurrent request of the applicant to rezone from RM, multifamily residential, to C3. You'll notice that the original staff report includes staff recommendation for denial. Staff is modifying its recommendation from a recommendation of denial to a recommendation of approval. One of the things that we take a look at is the current conditions of the area and also the feasibility of the development of the subject property. And one of the things that we have done is to take a closer look at these merits of the subject property. So we've looked at the fact that the highway has been realigned. As indicated on the overhead and also in your exhibit books, this is the site plan for the subject property. To the south is the old alignment of Highway 81. 81 has been realigned right through the middle of this subject property, which would render a contiguous development impossible for development as a multifamily residential development. Also, I'd like to note the rezoning, or excuse me, the zoning map in the vicinity of the subject property, which again is outlined in green. Properties to the west of the railroad tracks are the closest that have been developed on sewer. The Water Authority has indicated that sewer is not required for the subject property. In fact, to tie into the sewer would require lifting the service over the ridge along which the railroad track runs. The alternative to this would be very far to the south, actually off the map, to run the sewer to the subject property. So therefore, we have come to the conclusion that it is really not feasible to extend sewer to the subject property, which renders developing the subject property for multifamily residential infeasible in staff's estimation. So therefore, we have modified our recommendation of denial for the subject property to a recommendation of approval to change the land use map designation on the future land use map from high-density residential to commercial. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Does the board have a question for staff?
Not at the moment.
Well, I have a question in reference to the adjacent property. As of now, that's zoned, what is the zone of that property?
Okay, so I'd like to indicate on the zoning map, since this is a zoning question, this brown color, which it's all throughout the vicinity of the subject property, is an RM zoning, a multifamily residential zoning. So in the past, this area has developed with very small lots and in some cases multiple dwelling units on the same parcel, which is likely why this area was given an RM zoning in the first place. With today's standards, we're looking at possibly an apartment complex or a townhouse development or a condo development, something that would require sewer. But again, it's not feasible to extend sewer in this area. Regarding other zonings, the realignment of Highway 81 has created what we expect to be a new commercial node. So on the southeast corner of the new intersection of Highway 81 and Old Highway 3, there is an existing strip commercial shopping development. On the northeast corner, there's an existing home. So in the future, it's likely that that corner will develop for commercial purposes. But it's not, we would not want to hold the subject property hostage waiting on the corner to develop before we would recommend approval of commercial, knowing that it's not feasible for the subject property to be developed under its current zoning of RM.
And those commercial properties are on sewage?
No,
they are on septic.
They are on septic, that is correct.
Okay. And does that meet the requirements?
Yes. Yes, that is correct. And in fact, the applicant, and we'll get into this more in the next hearing, the water and sewer letter that was required as part of the rezoning application indicates that the subject property is suitable for on-site septic.
Okay. And is that based on whatever he or she decides to put on that property?
That is very likely. The letter or the form that was provided by the health department doesn't specify, but a commercial development is not typically so intensive with wastewater as a single-family home would be, which has a shower and persons who may be there 24 hours and so forth.
Okay. Any additional questions for Mr. Richard?
I don't know if this is a question or perhaps just a brief comment. The areas that are shown in the brown on the zoning map that was up here before, they really have its roots back to 1963 when Henry County first adopted zoning. One of the zoning districts was called RM75. And it was a type of zoning which is maybe not desirable today, but it allowed mobile homes, single family, multifamily dwellings, all under the same umbrella. So actually, there could be some parcels that could be developed with 3 different types of land uses. And to compound some of the problems, and this is reflected in the layout of lots shown on the map today, by 1982, the county really had to operate out of 5 different zoning ordinance, if you can imagine that. A 1963 ordinance, a 1982, and several others, in between. By 1986, all of those were eliminated and then combined into a new single, ordinance. And of course, we've had subsequent improvements, to the ULDC that we have today. But the fact remains that much of the layout of properties and even the land uses are a reflection of much earlier times of zoning in Henry County. For example, there's I think one of the parcels was developed with probably a dozen cement block homes all on one tract of land. That would have been allowed way back then, but certainly not today. So simply saying you really have a lot of non-conforming situations based on some of the things that have occurred in this area, in the past.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? If there's no additional question, we'd like to call the applicant, please. Please state your name and address for the record. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the staff recommendation?
My name is Gene Morris. My address is 228 Shorewood Court, McDonough, Georgia. And before I say anything, I want to say we are very fortunate to have planning staff of the professionalism and integrity of Stacy Jordan Rudisill and Dante Gibbs, because taking the extra effort to go in and consider the new alignment of Highway 81, which took 1.5 acres of right-of-way through the middle of that 7-acre tract, and to consider the old land use plans that were in effect from 1988 to 2008, when I relied upon them to buy that property 25 years ago, and adjacent tracts, is a very special thing. And we're fortunate to have these type of folks working with Henry County. If I may, there was a question about the adjoining property. The shopping centers join me on the west. The property to the east of that C-shaped piece right there, I own those parcels also. There's 4 parcels there, and I have 16 rental houses on those. So basically, there's a shopping center, C2 and C3 zoning on that side. To the east of me, there's 10 acres that's zoned C3 that is currently a big gravel truck parking lot from a previous zoning when this was in the land use plan commercial at that time. So I'm kind of wedged in between C3 commercial on both sides. And that's 7-acre tract being unusable as it is. I'm coming before you saying, we need some relief. We need to be able to get this rezoned commercial so it can be put into use. If sewer were available there on the 14 plus acres that I have at 16 units an acre, there'd be a possibility of over 200 apartments. I don't think the people in that part of the county want 200 apartments there, and it doesn't really matter because sewer is not available. So basically I have undevelopable land in that 7-acre tract. I left the tract sized as the road split them as a 3-acre tract and a 4-acre tract so there would be no doubt that there would be sufficient area for septic and sanitary sewage disposal on the properties.
Does the board have questions for the applicant? If not, you may be seated, sir.
Okay.
At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in favor of this case. 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of the case. No one's coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition of the case. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, call the case, please.
Case number COMP-AM-18-05. Gene Morris of McDonough, Georgia, requests a comprehensive plan amendment for property located west of 3248 Highway 81 West and land lot 185 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.05 plus or minus acres, and the request is to amend the future land use map designation from high-density residential to commercial. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill, Chief Planner.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I do. I would like to make a motion that the board agree with the revised staff recommendation to approve COMP-AM-18-05.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Call the next case, please.
Case number, excuse me. Case number RZ-18-24. Gene Morris of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RM, multifamily residential, to C3 highway commercial for property located west of 3248 Highway 81 West and land lot 185 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.05 plus or minus acres, and the request is for future commercial development. This property is located in Commission District 2 and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill, Chief Planner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Board members. This is the concurrent case from our previous request. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from RM multifamily residential to C3 highway commercial for the purpose of marketing the subject property for future commercial development. The subject property is located within the highway corridor overlay district. The staff recommendation as included in the original staff report is being modified from denial to approval, based in part upon a more in-depth look at the realignment of the road, the zonings of nearby parcels, and the character of the area. The applicant has stated that it's not feasible to develop the subject property under its current zoning of RM, multifamily residential, because sewer service is not available. Having recommended a commercial land use designation on the future land use map and based upon the merits presented, staff recommends approval of the applicant's request.
Does the board have any questions for staff?
I do. I'm just curious at what point you did decide to revisit this, and was there a specific trigger for you to do that?
Yes, we were very happy with the subject property's current zoning. It seems very appropriate to have residential development within walking distance of a commercial node, and especially an emerging commercial node such as this one. That was exciting for me as a planner, and it wasn't until the applicant contacted staff once the staff report was published to reiterate, hey, the sewer's not there for the development of the subject property under its current zoning. And so I was able to get together with the director of our department to revisit this. And it's not often that we change our recommendation, but in this case, it may be technically and engineering-wise something that could physically be done, but to extend the sewer for such a distance and to have to deal with receiving railroad approval and to receive the approval of the Water and Sewage Authority to even put in a lift station, it really did seem infeasible. in the estimation of staff.
Sure.
It is possible, and it does happen, that after different planning departments go through a comprehensive land use plan update, that we find, or other departments and other jurisdictions find errors. And in some cases, what we'll find is we'll go through a process like this and notice that, hey, the precedence here is commercial, but the future land use shows medium density or high density, and then realize that this may have been an oversight in the process. So that's one of the other things that I took into consideration when I met with Stacy and Mr. Morris, is that this is actually an error that needs to be corrected, and that it was an oversight through that 2-year process. 322 square miles, you're bound to miss something. So it happens.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that. It's good to have the explanation as to why. Yeah,
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Richard.
Yes, I guess this is just a technical question, but in the staff report, under development regulations relevant to the request, it does mention the highway commercial district, or I'm sorry, the highway corridor district. Well, let's see, I may not be correct about that, but anyway, would this be subject to the highway corridor, district regulations, if this were to be approved, or would that have to be an amendment later to the highway corridor district?
So this subject property, it is within the boundaries of the highway corridor overlay district, and the development will be required to comply with the development standards of the highway corridor overlay district.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'd like to call the applicant. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Gene Morris, 228 Shorewood Court, McDonough, Georgia.
Okay, Mr. Morris, do you have anything you'd like to add to staff recommendation?
I do not have anything to add. The property is, as you can see on the existing map, wedged between C3 to the east and west, and we just appreciate y'all's consideration.
All right. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, but thank you, sir. Thank you. Does the board have additional questions for staff? Call the case, please.
Case number RZ-18-24, Gene Morris of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RM multifamily residential to C3 highway commercial for property located west of 3248 Highway 81 West in land lot 185 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.05 plus or minus acres, and the request is for future commercial development. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rootsil, Chief Planner.
Dante, I want to go back to something. I actually asked you to call the case, but I overlooked the opposition or the in favor of this case, and I'd like to go back to
Sure.
that.
Good catch,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
At this time, I'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone liking to speak in favor of this case, or 10 minutes for anyone liking to speak in opposition of it. Sorry
It's
about
getting
that.
late.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Good catch.
Thank you.
I thank you, too. My name's John Hawkins. I live at 3044 Highway 81, about a half a mile from where you're at. All I've heard is C3. I know I've spoken with you on the phone, so I know there's some kind of restriction. I don't know what it is. But being a half mile away, I don't want the heaviest commercial you can get that close to my house. We already have a lot of traffic running up and down 81, especially since we've done the remake of that. So I just want to throw out into the conversation, if we could keep it to something that kind of fits in the area, as opposed to, we have the strip mall they talk about, there's a Subway, Caribbean Market, a couple of gas stations on the corner. So if we could look at something that size to put into that area, as opposed to whatever it is, and I can't find anybody that can tell me what fits into highway frontage C3. So that's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Okay, please come forward, sir.
He brings up an interesting question. Would you care to address that? And what can you say to put that gentleman's mind at peace?
Well, the two factors I see as the applicant are that the existing character of the neighborhood, the precedents are the C3 zoning that joins it already to the east and west. I think the bigger factor that should put his mind at ease is the Highway Corridor Overlay District. I think staff would be able to better address that than I can, but the requirements for the 10-foot sidewalk / multi-use trail, the lighting, the tree planting, the design of buildings, material types, all of those factors, Stacy, you could probably address that better than I could.
So, would you want me to address that, Mr. Chair?
If you would, please.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so the C3 zoning district is the most intensive commercial zoning district that Henry County has. And what that means is that there are certain uses that are only allowed in C3. And a few of those would be a hotel, for example. Anything that requires outside storage would require a C3 zoning district. Regarding the Highway Corridor Overlay District, there are certain uses that are prohibited, such as repair shops. So countywide, major automotive repair would be allowed under C3, but under the Highway Corridor Overlay District, it is not. So,
Mr. Marks, if I may ask, is it your intention to be just just to own the property and to sell it, or do you have an intention to develop it yourself?
It is my intention to sell the property.
Okay, so you don't have an intended use for it at this point?
That is correct. The property is to be marketed. I've owned the property 25 years, and it's time.
And the overlay would give the powers that be the ability to rein some of that in, so we wouldn't have the big monstrosities like what you're worried about. Is that right?
So, for example, actually under any zoning district, any development within the Highway Corridor Overlay District would have to be developed to a higher standard than that standard that's applied countywide. So, for example, along the highway, there would be required a 10-foot multi-use pathway. There would be required a 10-foot landscape strip alongside that sidewalk that would include street trees, and that would include pedestrian lighting. If there's to be access on the side streets, there would have to be sidewalks and street trees and so forth at that location as well. There's required a designated pedestrian connection, another sidewalk that's to connect the highway to the front of any buildings that would be built on the subject property. The buildings themselves would be required to reach a higher standard. So, for example, brick, stone, and so forth with trim on all four sides. If it's a building that's less than 5,000 square feet, the roof would be required to be entirely a pitched roof and not a flat roof. So there are all these higher standards that would be required no matter what is developed on a subject property within the boundaries of the Highway Corridor Overlay District.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any
Appreciate
additional questions?
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. If there's no additional question, you may be seated, sir. All right. We will now call the case.
Case, before I do that, Chair, Mr. Jay, we did have those want to speak in favor, correct?
Yeah, it's getting late. It's getting
It is.
late.
It is.
Do we
It's
have
late.
anyone who'd like to speak at this point in favor of the case? Okay. If not, any additional questions for the applicant? No questions? Call the case, please.
All right, happy to. Case number RZ-18-24, Gene Morris of McDonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RM multifamily residential to C3 highway commercial for property located west of 3248 Highway 81 West and land lot 185 of the 6th District. The property consists of 7.05 plus or minus acres, and the request is for future commercial development. This property is located in Commission District 2 and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan, Root Seal Chief Planner.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I do. I would like to make a motion that the board go ahead and agree with staff recommendation, the revised recommendation to approve This is RZ-18-24.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I believe that concludes our cases. Have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Adjourn.
Getting sleepy up here.